If this video teaches you something new, if it makes you rethink what you thought you knew about European history, here's what I need from you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. We're building something here, a community that doesn't settle for surface-level history. No fluff, no filler, just the decisions, the battles, and the consequences that changed everything. Let me ask you something. How long does it take for an empire to collapse? Years, decades, centuries of slow decay? What if I told you it took 6 weeks? 6 weeks for one of Europe's great powers to go from arrogant confidence to total humiliation. 6 weeks for an emperor to lose his throne, his army, and his dignity in front of the entire world. 6 weeks for Germany to be born and France to descend into chaos that would shape the next 70 years of European bloodshed. This is the story of the Franco-Prussian War, the war that almost nobody sees coming, the war where Prussia doesn't just defeat France, they annihilate them. They capture Napoleon III himself on the battlefield. They march into Paris. They crown a German emperor inside the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, the most sacred symbol of French glory, and they humiliate France so completely that the French will spend the next half-century dreaming of revenge. This isn't ancient history. This is 1870, the modern world, railways and telegraphs and industrial warfare, and it all starts with a piece of bait so obvious, so transparent, that France swallows it anyway. Before we dive into exactly how Prussia engineered one of history's most complete military victories, let's go back to where this really begins. Not in 1870, in 1866, 4 years earlier, Prussia just finished destroying Austria in the Austro-Prussian War. 7 weeks, that's all it took. Prussia smashed the Austrian Empire so fast that the rest of Europe is still trying to figure out what happened. The secret, railways, breech-loading rifles, a general staff that plans everything down to the last train schedule, and one man pulling the strings, Otto von Bismarck. Bismarck is not a general, he's not even a soldier, he's the minister-president of Prussia, and he's the most dangerous political mind in Europe. His goal is simple: unite Germany under Prussian leadership. The problem? Austria won't allow it. So Bismarck provokes a war, wins it in 7 weeks, and kicks Austria out of German affairs forever. But that's only step 1. Step 2 is France. France is the problem. France has been the dominant continental power for 2 centuries. French culture, French language, French military prestige. Napoleon Bonaparte conquered most of Europe. His nephew, Napoleon III, now sits on the French throne, and he thinks he's living in his uncle's shadow. He thinks France is still the military superpower it was in 1800. He's wrong, but he doesn't know it yet. Bismarck knows something Napoleon III doesn't. France is rotten inside. The French army looks impressive on paper, hundreds of thousands of men, veteran soldiers who fought in Crimea, Italy, Mexico, but the system is a mess. No unified command, no modern logistics, officers buy their commissions. Promotion is about politics, not competence. The French have one advantage, a rifle called the chassepot. It's better than the Prussian needle gun. Longer range, more accurate, but one good rifle doesn't win wars, systems win wars, and Prussia has the best system in the world. Here's what Bismarck understands. If he can unite Germany, he needs to give the southern German states, Bavaria, Württemberg, Baden, a reason to join Prussia. They're Catholic, they're suspicious of Protestant Prussia. They won't join willingly, but if France threatens them, if France looks like the aggressor, they'll have no choice. So Bismarck needs France to start the war. He needs Napoleon III to look like the villain, and he knows exactly how to do it. Spain needs a king. The Spanish throne is empty after a revolution kicked out Queen Isabella. Several candidates are floating around Europe. One of them is Prince Leopold of Hohenzollern-Sigmaringen. He's Catholic. He's distantly related to the Prussian royal family, and Bismarck quietly encourages him to accept the Spanish crown. This is the bait. If a Prussian prince becomes king of Spain, France will be surrounded. Hohenzollerns to the north in Prussia. Hohenzollerns to the south in Spain. Napoleon III can't allow it. It's a strategic nightmare, so France panics. The French foreign minister, the Duc de Gramont, makes a speech. He says France will not tolerate a Prussian on the Spanish throne. He says France will take action if necessary. It's a threat, a public threat, and it's exactly what Bismarck wants. Leopold withdraws his candidacy. Problem solved, right? No, France doesn't stop. Napoleon III, pressured by his wife Eugenie and the war party in Paris, wants more. He wants a guarantee. A promise that no Hohenzollern will ever seek the Spanish throne again. He sends his ambassador, Count Benedetti, to the spa town of Ems, where King Wilhelm I of Prussia is taking the waters. Benedetti approaches the king, makes the demand. Wilhelm is polite. He refuses. He's not going to give a binding guarantee about something that might never happen. He tells Benedetti the matter is closed. Then he sends a telegram to Bismarck in Berlin describing the conversation. The Ems telegram. Bismarck reads it, and he sees his opportunity. He edits the telegram, not much. Just enough. He makes it sound like Wilhelm insulted Benedetti, like the king dismissed the French ambassador rudely, contemptuously. Then he releases it to the press. Both the French and German newspapers print it. In Paris, it reads like a slap in the face. In Berlin, it reads like French arrogance. Public opinion in both countries explodes. In France, the war party goes wild. The newspapers scream for revenge. Crowds march in the streets chanting, "To Berlin." Napoleon III knows the army isn't ready. His war minister, Marshal Lebruff, assures him everything is fine. "We are ready," Lebruff says, "down to the last gaiter button." It's a lie. The French army is a disaster. Reserves aren't mobilized. Supplies aren't distributed. Nobody knows where anything is. But Napoleon III is trapped. If he backs down now, he looks weak. His regime might fall, so he takes the bait. On July 19, 1870, France declares war on Prussia. Bismarck just got exactly what he wanted. France looks like the aggressor. The southern German states honor their treaties and mobilize alongside Prussia. Germany is united, at least for the war, and France is about to learn what modern warfare looks like. Here's the thing about Prussia: they've been preparing for this war for years. The Prussian General Staff, led by Helmuth von Moltke, planned everything. Moltke is a genius. He's quiet, methodical, obsessed with railways and logistics. He knows that modern war is about speed. Get your armies to the front faster than the enemy. Concentrate your forces before they can react. Destroy them in detail. Prussia has the best railway network in Europe. They have detailed mobilization schedules. Every regiment knows exactly which train to board, which route to take, which station to arrive at. Within 2 weeks, Prussia puts 475,000 men on the French border, organized, supplied, ready to fight. France tries to do the same, and it's chaos. French reservists show up at mobilization centers and find no officers, no weapons, no supplies. Units are scattered across the country. Nobody knows where the supply depots are. Regiments arrive at the front without ammunition. Artillery batteries arrive without horses. Some units don't have maps. The French plan is to invade southern Germany, knock out the smaller German states, split the Prussian alliance. It's a good plan, but they can't execute it. By the time the French are ready to move, it's too late. The Prussians are already across the border. Moltke doesn't invade with one army. He invades with 3. The First Army under Karl von Steinmetz, the Second Army under Prince Friedrich Karl, the Third Army under Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm. 3 separate forces, moving on parallel routes, staying close enough to support each other, but far enough apart that the French can't pin them all down at once. It's brilliant. The French don't know where to concentrate. By the time they figure out where one Prussian army is, another one is hitting them from a different direction. The first major battle happens on August 4th at Wissembourg. A French division under General Abel Douary is dug in near the border. The Prussians attack with overwhelming numbers. Douary is killed in the first hour. His men fight hard, but they're outnumbered 3-1. By the end of the day, the French are retreating, first blood to Prussia. 2 days later, August 6th, the Battle of Spicheren. French forces under General Charles Frossard hold a strong position on the Spicheren Heights. The Prussians attack uphill, straight into French rifle fire. The chassepot rifles tear them apart. Prussian infantry fall in waves. For hours, it looks like the French might hold, but the Prussians just keep coming. More regiments, more artillery. They flank the French positions. They bring up heavy guns. By nightfall, the French are retreating again. Spicheren is a Prussian victory, but it's costly. The French fought well. They just couldn't hold. Same day, August 6th, another battle 70 miles south. The Battle of Fröschwiller. This one is bigger. Marshal Patrice de MacMahon commands the French forces, around 45,000 men. The Prussians, under Crown Prince Friedrich Wilhelm, have more than twice that. MacMahon doesn't want to fight here. His position is bad, but he's ordered to hold, so he holds. The Prussians attack at dawn. French artillery and rifle fire stop the first assaults cold. Prussian cavalry, the famous Death's Head Hussars, charge the French lines. It's magnificent. It's also suicide. The chassepot rifles cut them down. Horses and men pile up in front of the French positions. For a few hours, the French hold, but the Prussians have too many men, too many guns. They work around the flanks. They bring up artillery and pound the French positions into rubble. By mid-afternoon, MacMahon's army is disintegrating. The French retreat turns into a rout. Thousands are captured. MacMahon's army is shattered. 3 battles, 3 French defeats. In 6 days, Napoleon III is at the front, nominally commanding the army of the Rhine, but he's sick. Bladder stones. He can barely sit on a horse. He's in constant pain, dosed with opium. He's not making decisions. Nobody is. The French command structure is paralyzed. Generals don't know who's in charge. Orders contradict each other. Units march in circles. The French army is falling apart, and the war is barely a week old. The Prussians don't let up. Moltke's plan is working perfectly. The 3 armies are converging, driving the French back toward the fortress city of Metz. If the Prussians can trap the French at Metz, they can destroy the main French field army in one blow. Marshal Achille Bazaine commands the largest French force, the Army of the Rhine. Around 175,000 men. Bazaine is a capable soldier. He fought in Crimea, Italy, Mexico. He's brave. But he's also cautious, political, and he doesn't trust Napoleon III. When the Emperor finally gives up field command and returns to Paris, Bazaine becomes the senior commander. He decides to fall back to Metz, regroup, and wait for reinforcements. Bad decision. The Prussians are faster. On August 14th, Prussian cavalry scouts spot Bazaine's army marching west, trying to break out before the Prussian net closes. The Prussians attack immediately. The Battle of Colomiers. It's a meeting engagement, both sides stumbling into each other. The fighting is brutal. The French hold barely, but they lose thousands of men. More importantly, they lose time. By August 16th, the Prussians have Bazaine partially surrounded. 2 more battles in 2 days. Vionville-Mars-la-Tour on August 16th. Gravelotte-Saint-Privat on August 18th. Both are bloodbaths. At Vionville, a single Prussian cavalry brigade, the Brandenburg Cuirassiers, charges directly into French infantry and artillery to buy time for Prussian reinforcements. It's a suicide mission. The French guns tear them to pieces. Out of 800 men, only 100 make it back, but the charge works. The Prussians hold the road. Bazaine's escape route is cut. 2 days later, Gravelotte, the biggest battle of the war so far, around 250,000 men on both sides. The Prussians attack French positions along a ridgeline. The French are dug in, and they have the chassepot. For hours, Prussian infantry assault uphill into withering fire. The casualties are horrific. At Saint-Privat, the Prussian Guard Corps attacks in parade ground formation, marching across open fields toward French trenches. It's slaughter. Entire battalions are wiped out in minutes. The Guard loses 8,000 men in a few hours, but the Prussians don't retreat. They bring up artillery, 200 guns. They hammer the French positions until the trenches are unrecognizable. By nightfall, the French are pulling back, not routed, not broken. But pulling back, Bazaine orders a retreat into Metz, and that's the end. The Prussians surround Metz. 175,000 French soldiers, the core of the French army, are trapped inside a fortress. They're not defeated. They're not destroyed. but they're locked up, out of the war. Bazaine will sit in Metz for 2 months, doing nothing, while France collapses around him. This is where the war should end. France's main army is besieged. The Prussians control eastern France. Paris is vulnerable, but Napoleon III makes one last desperate move. He orders Marshal MacMahon, whose army was beaten at Worth but still exists, to march north and relieve Bazaine. It's madness. MacMahon knows it. His army is under strength, demoralized, poorly supplied, but the emperor insists. The government insists, so MacMahon marches. The Prussians know exactly where he's going. Moltke redirects 2 entire armies, the 3rd and 4th, to intercept MacMahon. They move faster than the French. They cut off MacMahon's route. By the end of August, MacMahon realizes he's being herded. He tries to change direction, march back toward Paris. Too late. The Prussians are already in front of him. On August 30th, the Prussians catch MacMahon's rearguard at Beaumont. It's a massacre. The French are surprised, disorganized. Thousands are killed or captured in a few hours. MacMahon's army is falling apart. He orders a retreat to the fortress town of Sedan, near the Belgian border. It's the worst possible choice. Sedan sits in a valley, surrounded by hills. The Meuse River runs through it. There's only one good road out. Tactically, it's a death trap, but MacMahon is out of options. His men are exhausted, starving, demoralized. He needs a place to rest, regroup. So he falls back to Sedan. The Prussians follow. By the evening of August 31st, the Prussian 3rd and 4th armies, around 240,000 men, are positioned on the hills surrounding Sedan. They have MacMahon's army, about 120,000 men, completely surrounded. MacMahon doesn't realize it yet. He thinks he has time. He thinks he can break out in the morning. He's wrong. On the morning of September 1st, 1870, the Prussians attack. Prussian artillery on the hills opens fire at dawn, 200 guns. They have perfect fields of fire into the valley. Shells rain down on French positions. French artillery tries to respond, but they're firing uphill into the sun. They can't see the Prussian batteries. The French guns are silenced within an hour. MacMahon orders a breakout to the west, toward Mézières. French infantry advance in columns, trying to force a gap. Prussian rifle fire stops them cold. The French try again, and again. Every assault is thrown back. By mid-morning, it's clear the breakout isn't working. Then MacMahon is wounded. A shell fragment hits him in the hip. He's carried off the field. Command passes to General Auguste Ducrot. Ducrot immediately orders a retreat back into Sedan. Nobody tells the units still attacking. The French army is now trying to advance and retreat at the same time. It's chaos. Napoleon III is in Sedan. He's not commanding. He's barely conscious, doped on painkillers, but he's there, and he can see what's happening. The valley is a killing field. Prussian shells are landing everywhere. French soldiers are packed into the town, shoulder to shoulder, with nowhere to go. Cavalry charges are ordered, desperate attempts to break the Prussian lines. They fail. The charges are magnificent, doomed. Cuirassiers in breastplates ride straight into massed rifle fire. Horses and men collapse in heaps. By afternoon, it's over. The French army is trapped, shattered, out of ammunition, 20,000 dead or wounded. The Prussians are preparing a final assault to storm the town. It will be a massacre. Napoleon III makes the only decision he can. He orders a white flag raised. The firing stops. The next morning, September 2nd, Napoleon III rides out of Sedan in an open carriage to meet King Wilhelm I of Prussia. The Emperor of France surrenders himself and his entire army, 104,000 men. 83,000 are taken prisoner. It's the largest capitulation in European history up to that point. The Second French Empire ends in a valley in eastern France, surrounded by Prussian guns. When news reaches Paris, the city explodes. The government falls. A republic is declared. Napoleon III is finished. The Prussians march him into captivity in Germany. He'll eventually be released and exiled to England, where he'll die a broken man 3 years later. But that's later. Right now, France is leaderless, the army is gone, and the Prussians are marching on Paris. Here's the thing. The war isn't over. France won't surrender. The new Republican government, the government of national defense, vows to fight on. They call up every able-bodied man. They form new armies, ragtag, poorly trained, but huge. Paris is fortified. The siege begins in September. It lasts 4 months. Inside Paris, the city starves. The Prussians don't storm the walls. They don't have to. They just wait. Food runs out. Horses are eaten. Rats are eaten. Zoo animals are eaten. People burn furniture to stay warm. The Prussians shell the city sporadically just to remind Paris they're still there. French forces outside the city, the Army of the Loire, the Army of the North, try to break the siege. They attack again and again. They're beaten every time. The Prussians are too well organized, too well supplied. The French armies are brave, desperate, but they're not enough. In January 1871, Paris surrenders. The war is over. France is humiliated, but the real humiliation is still coming. On January 18, 1871, while Paris is starving, the German princes gather in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, the palace of Louis XIV, the symbol of French glory. And they proclaim Wilhelm I as Kaiser of the German Empire. Germany is born inside the most sacred French space. It's a calculated insult. Bismarck plans it that way. The Treaty of Frankfurt is signed in May. France loses Alsace and most of Lorraine. Germany takes the provinces, the iron and coal, the factories. France has to pay an indemnity, 5 billion francs. Prussian troops will occupy parts of France until it's paid. The French pay it off in 3 years, faster than anyone expects, just to get the Prussians out. But the damage is done. France will never forget this. The loss of Alsace-Lorraine becomes a national wound. Every French schoolchild grows up staring at maps with the lost provinces marked in black. Think of it always, speak of it never. That's the motto. France will spend the next 40 years preparing for revenge. When World War I starts in 1914, it's not really about an assassinated archduke. It's about Sedan. It's about the Hall of Mirrors. It's about France wanting its dignity back. And when the war finally ends in 1918, where does France force Germany to sign the surrender? In the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, on the exact same spot where Germany was proclaimed in 1871. France gets its revenge. But that treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, humiliates Germany so badly that it creates the conditions for World War II. The direct line runs from Sedan to Versailles to the trenches to Hitler. One humiliation leads to another, and Europe drowns in blood for 70 years. But let's go back to 1870. How did this happen? How did France, the great military power, get crushed so completely in 6 weeks? It wasn't the soldiers. French soldiers fought hard. At Spicheren, at Gravelotte, at Sedan, they stood and fought against impossible odds. The chassepot rifle was genuinely better than the Prussian needle gun. French artillery was decent. French cavalry was brave to the point of suicidal. The soldiers weren't the problem. The system was the problem. France had no unified command. Generals operated independently, often at cross purposes. There was no general staff coordinating movements. Logistics were a joke. Units showed up without supplies, without ammunition, without orders. The French fought bravely, but they fought blind, disorganized, always one step behind. Prussia had the opposite. The Prussian General Staff was the most advanced military organization in the world. They planned everything, every train schedule, every supply depot, every contingency. Moltke didn't micromanage. He gave his generals objectives and let them figure out how to achieve them. March divided, fight united. That was the doctrine. 3 armies, moving independently, converging on the battlefield at the right moment. It worked perfectly, and the railways. The Prussians understood something nobody else did yet. In modern war, logistics is everything. Get your troops to the battlefield faster, and you win. Prussia had 6 railway lines running to the French border. France had 1. That's the war right there. Prussia could concentrate 400,000 men in 2 weeks. France couldn't match that. By the time the French were ready to fight, the Prussians were already winning. Then there's leadership. Moltke was a genius. Calm, methodical, always thinking 3 moves ahead. Napoleon III was sick. indecisive, trapped by his own legend. Bazaine was competent but passive. MacMahon was brave but unlucky. The French generals weren't bad, they just weren't good enough. And in war, that's the same as being bad, but here's the real lesson. Wars are fought before the first shot is fired. Prussia won the Franco-Prussian War in the decade before it started. They built the railways, they reformed the army, they created the general staff. They studied previous wars and learned. France did none of that. France relied on glory, on the memory of Napoleon Bonaparte, on the idea that French soldiers were inherently superior. They weren't. And when reality hit, it hit hard. Sedan isn't just a battle, it's a symbol. It's what happens when you stop innovating, when you believe your own propaganda, when you think past glory guarantees future success. France thought it was the dominant power. Prussia proved otherwise in 6 weeks, with ruthless efficiency, and the consequences echo for generations. Germany is born as a unified militaristic state. France becomes a republic nursing a grudge. The balance of power in Europe shifts overnight. Britain watches nervously. Russia recalculates. Austria-Hungary feels threatened. The alliances that will lead to World War I start forming right here in the aftermath of Sedan. Bazaine eventually surrenders Metz in October after sitting inside the fortress doing nothing for 2 months. 175,000 men march into captivity. Bazaine is later court-martialed for cowardice and treason. He's convicted, sentenced to death, then exiled. He dies in obscurity. MacMahon survives Sedan. He becomes president of the new French Republic, serving from 1873 to 1879. But he's haunted by Sedan for the rest of his life. Moltke becomes a legend, the architect of German unification. He serves as chief of the general staff until 1888. His methods are studied by every military in the world. The Schlieffen Plan, Germany's strategy for World War I, is based on Moltke's principles: fast mobilization, encirclement, decisive battle. Bismarck becomes the Iron Chancellor. He unifies Germany, balances the European powers for 2 decades, and retires in 1890. But even he can't prevent the long-term consequences of his masterpiece. The Germany he creates is too powerful, too militaristic, too hungry. It upsets the balance, and Europe never recovers. As for Napoleon III, he lives in exile in England. He dies in 1873, broken, forgotten. The Bonapartist dream dies with him. France is a republic again, permanently. The empire is over, but the memory of Sedan lives on. It's taught in French schools as a national tragedy. It's commemorated every year. The lost provinces of Alsace-Lorraine are never forgotten. When World War I starts, French soldiers march east with one goal: revenge. They get it at a cost of 1 million dead. And even then, the cycle doesn't end. History has few ironies sharper than this. Bismarck unites Germany to make it strong. But in doing so, he creates a power so dangerous that the rest of Europe has no choice but to unite against it. The very success of 1870 plants the seeds of 1914 and 1939. Germany wins so completely that it guarantees its own future destruction. That's the legacy of Sedan, a victory so total it becomes a curse. If this story moved you, if it changed how you see European history, here's what I need from you. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you think. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. No fluff, no filler, just the facts, the battles, and the empires that rise and fall. We're building something here, a place where history is told the way it should be, unfiltered, unflinching, real. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.